This is the 21.5 Show.
You're on 121.5, the emergency frequency.
Whether you're a professional pilot or want to be one, you're in the right place.
Let's get started.
Join professional aviators Dylan and Max as they talk their experience in the airlines, business aviation, and more.
Life is good.
Industry experts, unique stories, and plenty of fun. This is the 21.5 Show.
Here we go.
We are live. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. It is another episode of the 21.5 Show, another late night recording, as they always seem to be these days. Maxwell, welcome.
Very busy professionals these days.
Very active. A lot of activity. Our show notes say that we're going to be talking about the violinist at the gate again, and we haven't updated it in like 6 months.
Every time I see that, I get so worried. I'm like, this guy again? What happened?
What did he do now? Did he play Old Symphony? Oh, man. No.
More videos on the gram?
We've been taking some videos on the gram back, so we're going to have to share some of those.
I've been really working to increase our social media presence, which is really not my forte, but stacking content, if you will.
That's right. That's right. Well, welcome to the show. If you're new here, my name is Dylan. I am a professional pilot in the realm of business aviation, and I'm joined by Maxwell.
Yes. Also a professional pilot with his airline affiliation, as well as on the business side of things, and recreationally also.
You said you were at your hangar at 6 this morning?
Oh.
For the passion of aviation?
Yes.
Were you up taking young eagles for flights and around the pattern, trying to share your love of aviation?
I was putting an end to this Magneto saga.
Believe it or not, it's all not unicorns and rainbows with a 9-cylinder Romanian radial engine, apparently.
It's all good. It's all for the love of the game.
Love of the game. All right. So, Max, you and I were chatting the other day. You had to go to recurrent training, and you guys had to fight through a stab trim failure. And, you know, you're saying, so they kind of do a similar scenario to what is being done or what happened.
It's just a runaway trim scenario, which, it's similar thing. At the end of the day, it's runaway trim.
You told me that maybe last night, and then today I was en route. Bing! Primary stab trim failure in cruise after like an hour, and I'm looked at it, and I'm like, we just talked about this. It's like, oh, man. But it was weird because the airplane was like perfectly trimmed out, and the autopilot was still on, and I just like sat there and looked, and I'm like, you know what?
Wait. The autopilot, it was on with the trim fill?
Stayed on. I was surprised. And I'm like, is this thing going to start drifting?
Wow.
And so it was like the most civilized trim failure ever because we were able to like run through the procedure and do everything. I like made sure my seatbelt was tight. And then,
how exciting.
I know. I thought we were going to have to exit our VSM and do this whole thing. And so we'll work through the whole procedure. But yeah, it was exciting.
Do those Challenger 300s have auto throttles?
They do not. We have a very fancy...
None of them do?
The newest one, the 3500 does.
Bombard. Does it have a vacuum toilet?
No. Recirculating.
Come on, Bombardier.
I'm sorry. I don't know what to tell you.
Step it
I don't
up.
know what to tell you. I'll tell you what the Challenger 300 does have right now, though, is a new limitation thanks to our friends at Verizon with the 5G radio interference. You now have to hand fly every approach below 1,000 feet AGL.
Oh my God. What are you going to do?
I had to do it the other day. I was like, what's more dangerous, having a guy hand fly an approach or the possible 5G interference? I don't know. I feel like you got to really weigh that out depending on who you're flying with.
Is this just specific to the Challenger fleet or is this across all Bombardier products?
I can only tell you about it and what's in our airplanes, and that's, I mean, I don't know. Have you seen anything in...
No. What effect does the radio altimeter have to filing? It's not like you're flying a Cat 3C approach. And explain this.
I can't. All I can tell you is there's a new page in the limitations that says you got to fly below 1,000 feet AGL on
You
an
didn't
approach.
see the letter that Bombardier sent out with the background of this?
They said, they said, you lazy slackers, you don't have auto throttles already, and no one's been flying these approaches. Yeah.
Listen, these pilot salaries out of control. That's it. No more autopilot below 1,000 feet. Do something.
Yeah, they read the latest report from the AirComp calculator and like, this is out of control.
They said, do something, otherwise the co-pilot seat is going to be removed on the next version of the Global Express.
Exactly. If you don't do anything, you're out. Yeah. That's what I've been dealing with this week while you've been troubleshooting Magneto. So it's exciting times.
What an exciting week. I flew a Baron from Deer Valley to San Diego and back today.
That's why we're having a hard time getting these shows out on schedule because there's just too much actual aviation.
So much aviating going on.
Yeah, I know. There's how many types of it? Yeah. All right. Enough.
I went to the Gulfstream completion facility in Dallas. That's always...
Okay.
Dude, they fly those 280s.
Yeah.
From Israel green. It's a long way.
That's a long way.
That's what I was like, wow. I think what they do is pretty interesting. Actually, they fly the airplane and they meet the Gulfstream factory dudes in Northeast Canada, Gander or Goose Bay or something like that. And then that's where they pick up the plane and they fly it back to Dallas.
So it's like a little tech stop.
Yeah. Then they take everything, all the avionics out of the cockpit, everything, and then put them on the shelf. And it's pretty crazy actually to watch because so they fly the airplane there. It's green. They complete the interior there and they do. I mean, I don't know what I was expecting really, but those interiors are built from scratch. Like the wood veneer is laying in a pile. There's cow hides over here. Right. Like it's no joke. Like it doesn't show up like a pre-stitched seat. They just slide over the foam. Like it's
not like the IKEA cabinetry that my wife is currently building.
No, real deal. It's not like ordering a set of cat skins for your 1985 Suburban. It's no joke.
Wow.
That was pretty cool to see.
Yeah, that's really cool.
And then what's interesting is then you have this totally airplane that looks great on the inside and you walk out, it's still green. And then they fly to like St. Louis to get painted.
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
Yeah.
I want to get on the green ferry team. That sounds pretty easy. Just show up in Canada, zip it down. All right. Throw them the keys. Is there a coffee pot in there?
The airline service to Gander is very robust. Yeah. But
that's a good point. Oh, this is another funny story. So we're flying along today and I get an email about the President of the United States is coming to Phoenix. We're recording this here in late September. And he's actually coming here tomorrow night. And so I get this email and it's talking about all the different rings. You know how the presidential TFRs go. There's like the big ring and then there's a little ring around all these different places. And so I'm reading the email and I'm like, and I'm starting to read the description. It talks about how flying of radio controlled aircraft is suspended, but like control line aircraft, RC airplane flying is permitted, but they use caution. And I'm like, what is, and I'm reading this. I got an email because I signed my son up to be like a member of the Academy of Model Aeronautics. And the TFR email came from them. I thought it was like from AOPA. You know how you get these TFR emails? So I was like trying to read it because I'm like figuring out, is Scott still going to be close or whatever? It was
attention pilots.
I know. That's how it started. So I'm reading through it and then they're like talking about control line RC airplanes. I'm like, what kind of NOTAM is this?
Who's putting these things out?
Yeah, like you guys are leading with this. So anyways, that was kind of funny. Then the AOPA. So if you want the fastest note of information, the Model Aircraft Association is sending it out faster than the AOPA. They were like a solid 30 minutes ahead. So you got to kind of separate the wheat from the chaff if you're going to read their emails.
Homeboy's constantly monitoring the NOTAM traffic in case there's anything that affects model airplanes.
They are. Like, who is that guy? Wow.
Sounds like we need to be getting into tethered model flying. That way we can avoid all this hassle.
Yeah, exactly. So there's the lesson. If you want to be able to fly and you don't want to be restricted, you got to get in a control line airplane.
Do you have to physically turn around to follow when you're doing that?
I've never flown one. I don't know. Let's have a listener write in. I know nothing.
You'd have to get dizzy. There's no other way. You'd have to be rotating to watch it, right? Otherwise, it would just wrap around your head or what?
I don't even feel like I can explain what a control line RC airplane is, except it's just the controller is connected by a physical line that goes to the airplane, right?
I think there's two, and I think you tilt it to make it go up and down. How fun? What kind of fun is that?
Maybe if you're on a merry-go-round, is that how? I don't know.
I mean, that's a lot of math. Think about that. You'd have to do the radius and the math of the rotation rate of the merry-go-round.
I can't wait for the listener emails on control line RC airplanes that we're going to get. Please tell us. We don't know enough.
I will tell you something, though. I don't think I've ever flown a Baron before. There's just something really fun about getting it in a smaller plane that you've it's one thing when you go to the sim in a new jet, and you sit there on the ground for 9 hours and you go through the checklist and it's this regimented thing, but when you just hop in an airplane you've never flown and then you just fly it around, you just kind of fit, you're like, I don't know, I just throw some flaps in now and you just get a couple speeds and you're just like, oh, whatever.
Yeah.
Something about that is really fun for me.
Did you remember what Blue Line is?
Yeah, of course.
Okay.
Immediately accelerated to Blue Line upon liftoff.
All right, perfect. Glad to hear it.
And did the gump check. Don't you never fear. The gump check is still alive.
What about cowl flap operation? You felt good?
Oh, it's all over the cowl flaps.
Okay.
You wouldn't believe
all right.
Like white on rice. Cylinder head temperature management is my forte.
Is it? Because it sounds like your engine has been out of...
It is, because I'm worried about it constantly.
Oh my gosh. All right. I think that's enough nonsense for today. We got a great show for you. Brooks from Vaerus Jet Sales is going to be joining us again to give us another market update, talk a little bit about aircraft painting and interior. Actually, we...
Hold on.
Max is currently at his parents' house and they have a landline still. And it like announces the caller.
I live with my parents currently while I'm anxiously awaiting literally like less than 2 weeks until my new home is complete. And my parents still have a landline with apparently an audible caller ID.
Call from private number.
Call from Vivek Ramaswamy's political action team.
I like Vivek.
I love Vivek. Big Vivek guy.
Big
We should
Vivek
have him on the
guys
show.
here. They might get the official podcast endorsement soon.
Be like,
See.
Vivek, while you're wrapping up the FBI, would you mind getting rid of, can we put any requests in on
Hey,
the,
well, you know,
the Department of Education?
he's all about closing down all these like unnecessary federal agencies. It sounds like this Association of Model Aeronautics is kind of on top of this NOTAM thing. I think maybe they take over part of this. And
Maybe we could delegate some of the responsibility to the private sector that really is showing.
some real initiative, real limits of costs.
We could find that guy from Alaska that was on Overwatch. Remember, we could assign him some duties.
Right. I think we just outsource this. Yeah. Shared services going forward.
Private sector.
Mm-hmm. Let's do it. Here we go, Vivek. All right. Well, we got a great show coming up for you today. Brooks from Vaerus Jet Sales is back. Give us another market update. Talk a little bit about aircraft transactions. We'll talk a little bit about vibe checks with the owner. We'll talk a little bit about paint interior. It's actually I really enjoyed that conversation. And of course, a DC-3. We'll get more updates on that. So look forward to that. We've, of course, got flight advice at the end of the episode and plenty in the mailbag. We actually got a lot of reviews recently. Would you like to read this first one that we got?
Informative, entertaining, thought-provoking. I started listening in September of 2021 and really enjoyed your content. I love how nothing is off limits.
Nothing.
Discussion is open and honest. The show has demonstrated to me that there is always more to learn. You know what? I'm going to be honest with you. There are things that are off limits because I am regularly censored by my co-hosts, who shall remain nameless, and our former producer and our editor. So I will tell you, there are a lot of things that I find very thought-provoking, as you say.
They would be very provoking.
Intellectually stimulating and generally very offensive that I feel should be included, but I get censored.
On with the review.
I am an ag pilot and just hit ATP mins and seriously considering making a change. There's so much opportunity, but a ton of work to do and a million variables to consider. I also don't want to mess around and miss it. The other shoe has to drop soon, right? Can't be this good for much longer. This podcast is helping me to wade through all of the details and make an informed decision. Thanks, guys. Hope to see you in the flight level soon. From Cade S.
All right, Cade. That was great. Thank you for your review. Cade, shoot us an email, info@215podcast.com, and I will send you a sticker for your hard work. Much appreciated. What do you think? Should he ag pilot?
You know, what's interesting about that, Dylan, was actually having a conversation about the life of an ag pilot today with the gentleman I was flying the Baron with.
Okay.
Who's our boy Ken. You know Ken?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
That we had on, the ag
Ken
pilot
Minus,
we were talking about? Yeah.
Ranchero.
If you don't like the summer, that's the job because you just hustle and then you have the winter off.
Oh, I see. Because you're working during this. I see what you're saying.
Yeah, you work all day,
Yeah.
like sun up to sundown.
Yeah.
They never shut the engine down. You remember that?
Oh, yeah.
They'll pull into the chocks. They're loading up fuel and the hopper. You run in, take a leak, grab a sandwich, hop back in the thing and blast off. Can you imagine that?
No, I can't.
So, what kind of duty rigs do they have over there?
They don't. Yeah. No, I can't imagine that. Wow.
Duty rigs? What kind of duty limits?
PT6 limits.
Oh, the PT6 is not the limitation, I don't think.
Well, Cade, let us know what you decide. I could say this. Your best stories, make sure, don't leave ag flying until you got like you need at least 3 great stories, right? From your ag flying days. Because you can trade on that the rest of your career. Because people, if you tell them that you were a crop duster, they're like, oh, tell me your best stories. What do you so make sure you got a few before you go.
Great advice, Dylan.
Absolutely.
Fake it till you make it. Right up there.
Exactly. Next is the mailbag, which is, of course, brought to you by the Advanced Aircrew Academy, aircrewacademy.com. Check out all of the modules and courses they have designed for professional pilots. Max, you and I are big fans of the Performance Vector USAIG training through our insurance.
Big fan.
We use it for the upset recovery training, but another option is to actually use that benefit for Advanced Aircrew Academy. Let's say maybe you have a flight department of more than 1 or 2 people and sending somebody to upset recovery training isn't really possible. You can get a great benefit with Advanced Aircrew Academy. set up courses specific to the needs of your flight department. It's all covered under your insurance policy.
Unbelievable.
Check it out, aircrewacademy.com. Thank you for the long-time support.
I wonder what percentage of USAIG customers do not take advantage of performance vector benefit.
I don't know, but I can tell you it's not me.
That would be a real shame. There's some good programs.
There's some great benefits there.
This is an unpaid endorsement.
You know what I did? When I switched onto this airplane, the policy was going to expire in just like a month. And it was like right as the summer was starting. So I'm like, oh, we're not going to go fly Upset Recovery, in June. So I signed up for this software called Flight Risk. And that's a year subscription. So I got that. And then they got the new policy and then got to do the Upset Recovery, boom, back to back.
Apparently your predecessor was not taking advantage of the performance vector program.
The big brain move. That Flight Risk is really cool. We'll actually have to talk about that later. But basically you plug in where you're going and it's constantly monitoring and letting you know if there's any threats or anything for flights. It's actually pretty cool.
Why you're flying?
No. Before, you put it in multiple days beforehand.
Oh.
They're called yields and stops. And so if there a yield pops up, it lets you know. And then you're like, oh, by the way, hey, this forecast has changed.
Weather?
Oh, yeah. Or oh, by the way, this runway is now going to be closed. Or there's other stuff. It's kind of almost like a virtual dispatcher that's kind of before the trip, keeping an eye on you.
Is this powered by somebody at the Model Aircraft Association?
It is, yeah. Actually, yep. It is.
Dylan, Bob here from the Model Aircraft Association. I was monitoring the forecast there in
Is it are you flying a 2-axis or a 4-axis up there?
Is this going to be a real airplane or is this hand controlled?
Exactly. Yep.
Visibility should be good from your hand to the airplane, but
you'll be all set.
But if you want to fly the ILS, there might be some limitations you need to be aware of.
Yeah, there's just another reason why that needs to get them plugged in. Email number 1 says, "Hi, Dylan. Thought this might give you the chills. Stumbled on an old schedule of mine in my Google Photos when I was at ExpressJet. This was a fairly common schedule of a, quote, 4-day trip. Wow, I can't believe this was common back then. Work, LOL." And that's from Sean.
Oh, my God. Dude.
Are you looking at this?
ORD, IAD, ALB, IAD, CHS.
That's day 1, 4 legs, a quick 4-legger.
Where's the overnight or the rest? Do you see
it's at Charleston. It's 12 hours.
Well, let's see. He gets in at 22.
Yeah,
back
it's
out
12
at 2.
hours.
That's not too bad.
Yeah, that's gentlemanly. Then it's another 4 days.
Check your math, bro. It's 16 hours.
Oh, I'm looking at the little thing right there.
It's a nice Charleston. Where's the hotel? Is it downtown?
Ooh, maybe.
CHS, IAD, ALB, AID are the same thing except for the last stop.
It's just, and then, you get it to the hotel at 10, and then, that you always knew on a 4-day at a regional, you were getting at least 1 6-legger.
Richmond, Dulles, Columbus, Dulles, Albany again. A lot of Albany service. Albany, O'Hare, Kansas City. I do O'Hare, Kansas City tomorrow.
Yeah.
No, Thursday. Kansas City, Dulles, Syracuse, Dulles, Chicago, O'Hare again for the overnight. Is this a 5-day?
I think it's a 5-day.
1, 2, 4, 5. Holy
yeah. And then a little bonus 5 legs on the last day. That was always my favorite. They just would beat the crap out of you on the last day.
That's Norfolk, ORF. You can't see.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, I see. Yep.
Norfolk, Chicago, Syracuse, Chicago, Greenville, Spartanburg, Chicago. Holy mackerel. There is all that flying. It's a 34-hour 5-day.
Holy cow.
I'm calling it fatigue for work tomorrow just after reading this.
Just reading that it was unbelievable. That's incredible. My favorite part, I remember looking at these schedules my first couple days at the regionals, and then this is when I was an idiot and I didn't realize how the airlines worked. I'm like, you mean we're going to fly in and out of Dallas every other leg? Don't we go to see anything else? You mean we're just going in and out of the hub? This is very disappointing. I thought there'd be more point-to-point flying in the regionals. Not.
Really.
All right. Thank you, Sean. We all have PTSD now. Congratulations. Thanks.
Chills.
Yes. Go ahead.
Every time I hear you guys go down a rabbit hole that is a chain restaurant purgatory, I laugh to myself. I fly with the same people being a 91 aircraft and I die a little inside when they want to just eat at the hotel. It's worse than a chain restaurant. I think to myself, but bro, we're here for 3 days. We have time to go explore and find a good spot. Not to mention the rental car parked out front. That's the key.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
Case in point, we were recently on an island in the middle of the Atlantic and had plans to go to the historic town at one end of the island, UNESCO World Heritage Site. But they saw some rain in the forecast, a drizzle at that, and it was enough for them to want to just stay in and eat at the hotel. I have no idea when or if I will be back to this little rock in the ocean. So I jumped on the bus. Oh, but maybe they don't have a rental car. And went by myself. I had a great time. Found some good food, soaked in the history. Could not eat another day at the hotel. Not when we had the time and the means to explore this foreign land. Or how about the time we had a week in Honolulu? They wanted to just eat at the uber touristy places right on Waikiki. I mean, walk back 1 or 2 blocks and you have awesome ramen, barbecue, fish restaurants, etc. Occasionally I get to try something different, but most times it's a chain restaurant or hotel food purgatory. The aspect you guys don't talk about that much is because it's always, to me, the same co-captain. I have to keep the peace. So most times I just sigh and go along. And occasionally, though, I will break off and do my own thing. But don't want to strain that crew dynamic too much. Not when I want to keep flying here and ride this gravy train as long as I can. So this all brings up the question, where does hotel food fit into the chain restaurant hierarchy of boring decisions? Mildly suffering from another hotel restaurant. Nick, that is just whole another facet of this
big can of worms. So we got 2 big concepts to tackle. I mean, one is obviously the crew dynamic.
You have the Marriott burger, right? Which is
$16.99.
The $30 Marriott burger. The DoubleTree cookie. I mean, there's a there's a lot of layers of this onion to peel back, But he's right. Would you rather go to the hotel restaurant or to Chili's again?
See, here's the thing. Here's the difference, Nick. And I'm not disagreeing with anything you're saying. It's a vibe check you got to do at that hotel. Because that hotel lobby bar restaurant area can be popping.
I have been witness to and more likely a part of popping lobby bar party in my life.
The hopping lobby bar.
Twice.
If it's the right zone and the right deal, then I don't have a problem with it. But that's more not to eat, not the meal. That's just more the vibe and what's going on.
That's true. But I think the hotel restaurant is better than going to a chain restaurant.
Yeah. I mean, especially if you and your companion
want variety still. The hotel restaurants are all exactly the same. I mean, there's there's themes, and there's all kinds of stuff going on.
And we're not talking like the Courtyard here either. Let's be clear.
But
if you're at a full service hotel, it's acceptable. But I get exactly what you're saying, especially if you're somewhere that you haven't been before, that you need to get out and explore, and you have a car. Yeah, I'm with you. One hotel dinner on a trip is plenty.
Maybe. I tell you though, at the airlines, the thing about the hotel dinner, here's what a lot of people that maybe haven't been flown with the airlines is they have very good discounts negotiated at the hotel restaurant. So that's a whole nother hurdle you have to overcome with.
That's a completely different conversation, I think. Because 1, you guys don't have a car. And 2, you're usually on 14 to 18-hour overnight. It's not like, let's get out and,
But that's not true. See, if you're at a shorter overnight like that and you're at the airport hotel, your hands are tied, really.
Yeah.
But if you're at a longer overnight, where generally the hotels are downtown, within walking distance of a lot of interesting places, then But then you're like, I did 35% off at the hotel.
So let's say you are on a trip with Mr. Chain Restaurant, Mr. Lobby, or Mr. Hotel Eater is your co-pilot. It's just you and him or you and her, and you're the only 2 crew, so you always got to see each other. Let's say you're going to have 10 meals on a trip. What do you think is the right amount of meals that you can eat on your own and still kind of keep the peace?
Well, that's another very dynamic question, Dylan. It depends on a lot of things. I mean, there's some people that are just happy to be slam clickers, and they're just, I'm just going to,
Yeah. If I'm somewhere for 2 or 3 nights, I can maybe get away with 1 dinner on my own.
Well, it just depends, dude. The guy I've been flying with for several years now.
Yeah.
I don't know that we've ever on a trip not shared a meal together.
This is not what I'm talking about, how great of a situation you have. I'm talking about when you're the second banana and you're stuck with somebody that only will eat at a chain restaurant.
Oh,
or at the hotel. See what I'm saying? And that's all they're going to do. So how many meals can you just be like, why don't you go on your own? I'm going to go check out this, thing on a 2 or 3 night trip. You can probably get away with 1, maybe 2 meals where you roll solo.
Yeah, I think mostly dinners, you could probably be like, all right, listen.
I think you just say, hey, here's where I'm going to go. You should come.
You got to beat him to the punch. Yeah. There's no option.
Exactly.
Here's where I'm going. Yeah. Would you like to join me? Okay.
Yeah.
No pressure, though. No pressure.
Yeah, no pressure. It is $15 burger night here at the Courtyard. All right. I think we've spent enough time on this.
Yeah.
Good. I guess
Good
clear
point,
that
though.
we need to do the chain restaurant live show.
Yeah.
coming up soon. All right, next email says, allow me to add some more substance to your enduring admonition to live in base if at all possible. I think this is like a list of gripes from a commuter here. All right, let me read these. This is from Mark. No hot water at the hotel. Leave early because they didn't have enough shuttle drivers. Get stopped by 6 passengers who think I'm a walking information booth. Delayed departure waiting for fuel. Wait for ramp crew at the arrival gate. Finish at 2 a.m., which is 4 a.m. for the family. Sleep a few hours in a crew room recliner instead of the crash pad to limit rideshare spending.
The worst.
Get woken up by the airport security announcement test. Skip breakfast because the lines are too long. Try to commute on the first flight home. Gate change. Seated next to a passenger with an emotional support bamboo plant. Return to gate for an hour maintenance delay. Screaming babies. People that don't own headphones. Or, excuse me, sir, at the home airport. Where'd I park my car? ? Traffic accident on the drive home. So I guess this is all from one trip. I don't know. Mark says, I'm glad my relatively few days of commuting are coming to an end.
I think he's just throwing salt on the wound of commuting.
Yeah. You're preaching to the choir, Mark. Thank you for that email. Max, I'll let you read the next one. The last one here. It's a flight advice follow-up.
Previous flight advice. Should I go from narrow body flying to wide body flying? I was slightly amused that my question about transitioning to ultra long haul flying from domestic wide body got turned into, you should go back to corporate. I'll just say this. F corporate aviation. I'll get a job at Home Depot before I go back.
That was in our live flight advice, or our flight advice with James. Okay, well, I misread that situation a little bit, I guess.
Clearly. Well, let us know how it works out at the airline.
Yeah. Did you go to ultra long haul flying? Let us know. You got to report in 6 months.
Yeah, after that.
Yeah. Let us know what you
Sounds
think.
like corporate's off the table, so
Yeah.
at least we narrowed that down. Now there's only 2 options.
Yeah. Ag flying's still out there. Maybe you can do a little job swap with that guy.
Okay.
All right. Well, that's enough from the mailbag. Always love hearing from our listeners. You can participate in the show by simply sending us an email, info@215podcast.com, or shoot us an anonymous message from our website. Thanks to Advanced Aircrew Academy. I know they often scratch their head and wonder why they continue to sponsor the mailbag, but we certainly appreciate it, and I know our listeners do too. Max, let's jump right on over to our main interview with Brooks. I think folks are really going to enjoy this. Brooks does such a good job of communicating the passion he has for aircraft ownership. I think you might get a taste of it. Here we go. Max, we're so excited to welcome back our aircraft sales diamond dog, Brooks Pettit.
Welcome back to the show, Brooks.
Thanks for having me again, guys. It's always nice to get a chance to talk to you guys.
Yeah, well, listeners will remember you've joined us in the past, Brooks, and to share a little bit of your expertise in aircraft purchasing, sailing. We were talking about the marketplace right now. There's a lot going on. If folks haven't been paying attention, give us a little bit of update. What are we seeing out there? Interest rates are still crazy. What's the marketplace like?
Well, I mean, overall, it's becoming a more balanced marketplace. I would say it's similar to the real estate market right now, but it's really nice that when you have a client that is interested in buying an airplane, that you can actually source and find an airplane, and that the transactional terms are reasonable and balanced in the marketplace. So, I think we talked this time last year, we were doing deals where it was an as is, where is sort of deal, and no pre-buy that allowed a screwdriver to be used sort of thing. And now we're back to normal pre-buys. Inventory levels are kind of coming back to what everybody believes to be a more balanced marketplace. They're not there yet, but they're trending that direction. And I think by the end of this year, we always have a fourth quarter uptick.
Right.
Tax laws are still strong this year. They get a little different next year. So I think through the end of this year, we're going to have a strong but more balanced marketplace than we've seen in recent years. And then who knows what happens after the first year.
You don't want to make any predictions? You want to get the crystal ball out right now?
If I had to wave a crystal ball, I would forecast that by this time next year, the marketplace is favoring a balanced market, meaning inventory and demand for that inventory is at a relatively balanced ratio. And that means that buyers and sellers have the opportunity to negotiate on price point and terms of the transaction, and buyers can expect a reasonable inspection. And when you do go to market looking for an airplane, it means that you will have more than just one airplane to search for.
wouldn't you say anybody that's right now say, I'd like to buy an airplane in the next 6 months, realistically, aren't all of those buyers going to get shoved into the next 3 months? Because if you're going to buy an airplane in the next 6 months, wouldn't you buy it before the end of the year to take advantage of the tax benefits? So I guess what I'm saying is, isn't the next 3 months going to be kind of artificially higher demand, and then the following 3 months of January, February, March going to be like nothing going on because everybody was shoved into the end of the year?
Traditionally speaking, that's kind of how the marketplace works in general, regardless of what the general demand is or how tight the market is. Fourth quarter is always a tax-driven purchase. People are doing their end-of-year tax planning and realizing that we might be able to save 42 or 43% on taxes on the purchase price of the airplane. So, yes, I think we see a continued strong demand through the end of the year. These are cash buyers, though. These are people that are buying airplanes and not traditionally financing them. We all know that, bank liquidity is a topic of conversation worldwide right now, or at least nationwide. And if the banks are paying 5% on deposits right now, then it makes it tough to loan that out with any sort of a margin spread. Typical bank needs to make 2 to 4% margin on their lending to be able to cover the overhead of running the bank. And so you're looking at rates that are getting close to, 8, 9, sometimes even closer to 10% now, depending on the type of deal, the age of the airplane, the quality of the airplane, the quality of the credit, the quality of the machine.
So that wipes out your bonus depreciation savings pretty quick if you're paying, 8, 9% on an aircraft, right?
Yeah. I mean, effectively, if you're paying, let's say you're paying for rough math, you're paying 10%, you're going to save 40% in taxes. You either need to have the airplane paid off or refinanced or sold in 4 years. Or, I mean, that's making simple math and not taking into account the diminution of the interest expenses you pay off the note, that sort of thing. So, 4 to 5 years at that kind of rate negates the tax savings. But then you have the time value of money with, you buy $1 million airplane, you save $400,000 in taxes, and then you go reinvest that money in, in the market right now. If people that are sitting on piles of cash this is a good time to have a bunch of cash because, you can make it work for you right now. So the other conversation about the bonus depreciation that a lot of people don't take into effect into consideration is how you're going to use the airplane, and which is why it makes sense to buy an airplane in fourth quarter. So there's no temptation of personal use, because if you do elect to take that accelerated CARES Act depreciation, you really cannot use the airplane, not even for one personal trip. It has to be 100% business use.
Just one ski trip, just one time to Park City.
Yep.
Yeah, it's not that the temptation isn't there. Just the amount of time you have to resist the temptation is shorter.
Exactly.
Well, precisely. And you have to look at it like this. If I buy a $5 million airplane, am I willing to pay $2.3 million in taxes to go on that ski trip?
Well, when you put it that way, it really sucks the fun out of the ski trip.
Have you skied Park City, though, in December with that light, fluffy snow? I mean, it is so dry.
Yeah.
That is a good point. It's probably worth $2.5 million for some people, not for me. But
well, I think, just what you've been sharing, Brooks, I think is really illuminating for folks that are listening. There's so many considerations when you're buying an airplane, and like you're talking about, what is the time value of money? And it's kind of all these sort of like secondary things that when you're making a big purchase like that, there's a lot to consider. And I think especially for pilots that are listening and maybe we don't consider all that, it kind of illuminates why bringing a professional into a transaction can be very helpful, because there's a lot of things that we probably don't think about on our own.
Oh, certainly. There's a lot that goes into it in terms of, certainly from a taxation standpoint, probably first and foremost, and then, the rest of it all falls into place as well from a pedigree and knowing what you're buying, that sort of thing.
Right. Let's talk a little bit about inventory that's on the marketplace. You heard people think, oh, there's some fleets out there. Maybe there are some certain companies, maybe we don't have to mention them, with large turboprop fleets that we thought, well, are they going to make it through the end of the year? Is there going to be some changes in the types of aircraft available? Have you seen movements on specific airframes that are like, wow, the value's really gone down, or there's a lot of it?
What are the hot airframes that people, the cost has remained higher because of the demand?
I would respond to that by saying that I don't think that it's specifically targeting a certain make and model of an airplane right now. At least we're not seeing that. What remains true today that has always been true in any tight market is newer, more modern airplanes that have a big, strong fleet presence are affected less by a declining market than those, an old Falcon 2000, for example, is going to have a heavier hit than 900EX Easy or, something like that. Airplanes that are more modern and current are going to have a much less decline in marketability. Certainly the price points are going to continue to soften as the market softens a little bit, but airplanes will still transact. And when airplanes are transacting, that means that we're not going to see an all-out, the bottom. I don't see the bottom ever, in the next, I'm going to forecast as far as 12 months. I don't see the bottom falling out of the market. I think people that buy an airplane can expect reasonably that it's going to be worth within, 8 or 10% of what they paid for it within the next 12 months. That being said, the airplanes that are reaching the end of their life cycle maintenance, when the more highly sought after airplanes were not available to be purchased, all of a sudden you see people buying up these older airplanes and doing the D checks and doing engines and paint and interior. You'll see less and less of that as the market becomes more balanced. The value proposition of bringing these older airplanes back to life just isn't there.
So what happens? Do those airplanes get put out to pasture, or does the price point become low enough where it becomes economically feasible to do those large maintenance events?
Yes, all of the above. I think we talked about last time that there's a behavioral trait of aircraft buyers, and there's 3 fundamental types of airplane buyers: the new, the slightly used, and I just want cheap transportation. And each of those airplanes over a period of time will be owned by each one of those categories of people. Somebody had to buy it new. Somebody's going to buy that from the company that bought it new that's now selling it to buy a brand new airplane again. And then at the end of the day, these airplanes, end up, maybe in the charter market or in the sort of environment where people don't necessarily care so much about. They'd rather have less downstroke on the front end and pay for a little more maintenance as they go. You mentioned talking a little bit about fleet operators.
Yes.
I think 2 things has happened recently that cause you to at least perk up a little bit when you think about any purchasing decision in certain markets. And we've talked a little bit about a big fractional company that, or not fractional, but jet card company that has a directional word in their name that a month ago or 2 months ago, I think a lot of us in the marketplace didn't think that they would be here a month or 2 down the road. Delta put in $500 million as both part in equity and as a loan. But so that maybe one of 2 things will happen. Either that company will be propelled and resurrected and combined with new operational efficiencies that come with some new leadership and thinking differently about the way that they run that business. They may flourish and continue to grow and be a venerable competitor to all the other fractional companies. But the big concern, anytime that there's a conversation in the marketplace about a large operator of any fleet of anything that may be on the brink of insolvency, is what happens to not only that specific model of airplane in the fleet, but it has a trickle down and trickle up effect on other fleets as well. Example, if, we just sold a King Air 360, what we believe to be the highest watermark price point ever for a King Air 360 to sell for. But I don't think I could go back and do that again if that company that operates a bunch of those similar airplanes dumps 80 airplanes on the market. And it's interesting to follow that. There are 2 types of those major fleet transactions. There's that sort of a transaction where there's a liquidity event, a negative liquidity event rather, where a company is effectively ceasing operations and dumping those airplanes into the fleet. Well, if you instantaneously put 10% of a total fleet available for sale on the marketplace, we all know what happens to that specific fleet inventory. But what's not discussed is, let's say somebody's looking at a Citation Ultra or Bravo or, an Encore or something like that. And they're looking at, what I really need is transportation. And I'm unsold on, do I want to go light jet or King Air 350 fleet? Either of them will do the job, but all of a sudden there's a ton of inventory on the marketplace and I can buy an airplane that will suit my needs just fine. You'll see that happening.
Right.
And not every airplane buyer knows what they want to buy. I would say 3/4 or probably every bit of 3/4 of airplane buyers know what they want when they start the search, but not everybody does. And those people that are not committed to a certain model are now price point buyers. And when they're price point buyers, a fleet liquidity event is going to drive down every part of the pricing structure, and that those people that wanted a 10-year-old airplane, they're going to pay a little less because the people that thought they wanted a 10-year-old airplane are now saying, okay, now I'm going to buy this 12-year-old airplane that's got 8,000 hours on it now because I can buy it at half the price or, whatever that number is. So it drags everybody down, but it also has a lateral effect in that it has some negative pricing structures on trends on similar type fleets. I don't think it changes a large turboprop or a light jet doesn't change super midsize. Those are different categories of buyers, different owners. I don't think you see much change there. In other news, Textron and NetJets just announced that NetJets is going to be buying 1,500 airplanes over the next, I think it was 8 or 10 years. That's a big number of airplanes. It's I think the largest commitment that's ever been made that I'm aware of. And specifically, what's interesting to us as a reseller of airplanes is, well, what happens when the inventory that it's replacing comes back on the marketplace? Textron has always done a nice job of because they're large enough, taking those airplanes in on trade and metering the marketplace, which is, I don't think that should be viewed as anything but positive, meaning that it's good for the airplane owners. Textron has, and the OEMs have, I would say, exercising somewhat of a fiduciary responsibility to their airplane owners that have been loyal customers to the fleet to not dump all those airplanes on the marketplace and cause all of their customers' airplanes to be worth large percent less than they are today. So the Textron news, I think, is good with NetJets in that hopefully they'll meter those airplanes onto the marketplace over a few years. They've done a nice job of that in years past. But then the other company ends up not making. I can't imagine a company that puts $500 million into a company and doesn't plan on seeing it through. But a month ago, that conversation could have been very different than it is today.
Yeah, right. So let's say you have a client that goes, I found this airplane. It's an old NetJets airplane. It's got 8,000 to 10,000 hours on it. Do you just immediately head for the hills, or are those still ones that you would consider?
Just to be told, I want to know more about the personality of the buyer. We've actually been involved in maybe a dozen or so of those airplanes over the years. And candidly, they're supported by two of the best, most reputable companies. They're supported by NetJets, who does a nice job mechanically taking care of their airplanes, and Textron does Textron and their OEMs, the Duncans and Elliots and all those companies. They take good care of the airplane. So yeah, they've got some higher time. I wouldn't necessarily run for the hills with them. You tend to find that they do a little bit of an interior refresh and a little bit of a paint refresh and before they let them out. So it depends on the psychology of the buyer and what capacity they have for some AOG situations and that sort of thing. But I wouldn't run from them.
Yeah. And a lot of what you have to do in your job, right, is assess the psychology of that buyer, because when you put pen to paper, a lot of times it's hard to justify continually buying new airplanes, right? Is that buyer a lot of time, that's a psychological thing, would you say, where they just say, hey, I just want a new airplane every 5 years. I don't really care about the depreciation I'm going to experience on the back end and things like that. I just want a new airplane. Is that normally the mindset of that kind of buyer?
Yeah. And I would say that so long as the mindset of the buyer is consistent, if they're comfortable in their own skin and they know who they are, they know I'm not a new airplane buyer, or I'm always going to be that company or that guy that buys an 8,000 or 10,000 hour airplane, more power to you. And frankly, they'll enjoy their airplane almost as much as somebody that's buying a new airplane, just have different perspective. And they don't have, 10 times the capital tied up in the process. You are going to spend more money in maintenance and operational efficiency over the years, and you have maybe a little less gee whiz, cool features. The confusing part of this conversation is when you have somebody that goes back and forth. That's when it gets really expensive. And we've all been around those people that, you have a good year and so you want to go buy a brand new airplane and then business isn't as good 2 years from now. So I want to go sell it and I want to go to the other side of the spectrum. I think those people are the ones that lose in a 5 or 10 year period. I think they end up losing overall. The people that are new airplane buyers or mid-range buyers, and they just stay in your own lane. Whatever your lane is, stay in it. And I think you're going to win overall.
All right, let's take a quick time out from Brooks to mention another sponsor of ours. And that, of course, is Timothy P. Pope. When it comes to financial planning, he's got your back so you can focus on the mission ahead. Timothy P. Pope is a certified financial planner helping professional pilots design and execute smart financial planning strategies from retirement planning and investment management to military transition and tax planning. He's your financial planning partner. Timothy P. Pope, helping professional pilots make the most out of life. Okay, Brooks, this might be a dumb question, but I'm translating what I've seen in the real estate world over into airplanes, and maybe this doesn't work like this. There are people that are advertising their homes for sale where buyers are able to assume the note, and they're assuming a note at a lower rate. Does that exist in airplane purchasing at all?
Oddly enough, I think I told you guys I was out in California in Napa the last few days and was one of the people that was with me on that trip as an owner of a bank. And it was a very interesting narrative talking about this topic and that, they're strong in the mortgage business and candidly speaking across the board, not about any specific bank, but if you're lending money at 3% or have lent money at 3% and have to maintain liquidity in your bank to be able to loan that money out, and now you're paying 5% on CDs for deposits and just short of that for general savings and checking sort of deposits. We all know how that math works. They're borrowing money from the borrower at this point.
Right.
They're paying net interest to the borrower. So what I've seen is even when you have a change in guarantors, meaning an airplane that's owned in a partnership and one partner wants to leave and the other one wants to come in, that's a consideration. Even the airplane's not leaving, the airplane's not transacting on the open market, but 3 people on an airplane, one of them wants to leave. Well, they're also a guarantor on the note. All of a sudden the bank is pushing for, all right, well,
time to refinance this.
Our hands are tied, guys.
Yeah. And the real reality is they want to get that low rate note off their books and they want to replace it with one that's right sized for the marketplace today. So I don't see that happening in at least on the sorts of banks that we tend to work with. And again, that's something that's negotiated on the front end of a borrowing transaction. And I can't imagine there were a lot of those transactions that were negotiated that way on the front end. In hindsight, it'd be nice to have done that. I'm in the same boat. I'm at a 2.62 rate on my house, and which means I'm stuck. I can't go anywhere because to go up or even lateral would cost $25,000 or $30,000 a year worth of interest. So,
yeah, and that's the gridlock we're seeing in real estate. And like you said, cash is king right now.
I'm sure the people with airplanes are in the same boat too.
Oh yeah,
it's the same thing, right?
There's an old adage that to buy a mid-size airplane or better, you ought to have a net worth of somewhere around $100 million to do that. I don't think everybody that owns those airplanes has that kind of net worth, but that's kind of been a loosely, if you're healthily owning an airplane that costs that much to own and operate, you ought to have that sort of net worth to be comfortable owning it. In doing so, they're winning right now. Their airplanes are being paid for by their money working for them right now.
That's a good point. Brooks, I'm going to send you a screenshot of my checking account, and then you tell me what I should be owning. I think maybe Toyota Corolla.
1946 Taylorcraft. Have you heard of that type before?
I was going to say I've got a really nice Piper Cub that was my first airplane.
Just make sure it has the autogas STC on it, okay? This guy's not paying $7 a gallon for fuel, period.
Can't be doing that. Oh, man.
Yeah.
Okay. Speaking of owned airplanes, Brooks, give us a DC-3 update.
We've been having a lot of fun with it. We've been out and about meeting with airplane owners and buyers and sellers and pilots and aircraft managers, and just having a ball with it. It's been a great outreach asset for us. We've had a lot of fun. It does not make deals happen for us. It makes opportunities for deals happen. It allows us to meet with people. We still have to know what we're doing, and we still have to be able to put our money where our mouth is, per se. We still have to be good at what we're doing, but it's been a lot of fun. I've been to Texas and back in it, run around all over the Midwest in the airplane. So, it's been fun.
Have you figured out how to get to stop leaking oil, though? That's the real question.
No, that's part of the ambiance of the airplane.
You're supposed to say, yeah, you just don't fill it up.
You don't turn it on.
Probably the most frequent question I get about that airplane is, well, why don't you buy one with PT6s on it? So, well, that takes the novelty of the airplane away. I don't want to go 200 knots in an airplane like that and be, comfortable higher above the clouds. I want to fly like Ernie Gans flew it, although with some modern Garmin avionics. But
okay, so if you see a beautiful DC-3 on a ramp at an FBO that says Vaerus Jet Sales on the side, you might see Brooks jumping out, but don't shake his hand right away, I would guess, because it might be a little, it's oil rags, who knows exactly what you're doing right afterwards, but...
That's right.
Brooks, I had one more question for you. You're talking about the marketplace and inventory and interest rates and all this kind of stuff, but let's talk about the buyers for a second. How do you prepare buyers for this environment of parts shortages, maintenance technician shortages, pilot shortages? It's kind of a gnarly environment to get into in some respects. Like, there's got to be a little bit of coaching and therapy you do on that end too, right?
Yes, I would agree that all of those things are problematic to general good enjoyment of an airplane. But I think they're less of a problem now that, we're no longer talking about COVID supply chain issues. Parts are mostly available for a lot of the airplanes, that have been produced within the last 20 years. You generally speaking, you find parts. If you're not dealing with an AOG situation, the way that we manage through that is you start planning your inspections ahead of time and you start buying the rotables and having parts on hand so that through good management, you can offset the supply chain issues with some proper planning to effectively the old adage of you're a duck floating on the water, and what the customer sees is a graceful duck, and underneath you're paddling as hard as you can. And that's how you offset that from an operational standpoint, as a guy that we, also have an aircraft management company. But we may or may not have talked about this, but, there's a very much of a difference between the emotion of money. And we find this time and time and time again that you can have conversations about $1 million is much different when you're talking about it in a futuristic tense than a right now tense, meaning your annual budget for the airplane for the year is $1 million. And that's different than, well, you divide that up and that's $80,000 a month. And when you write an $80,000 a month check every month, or whatever that number is, and some airplanes are a lot more expensive than that, and some airplanes are a lot less expensive than that. So it takes an extraordinary level of communication. And I even talk to our prospective airplane owners about, I use that same analogy. Say, look, this spreadsheet looks like numbers. They're math equations for you right now. But when it comes time, there's going to be a point in time where every number in that column represents a dollar amount on a check being written. Are you ready for this? Are you comfortable with this? Inevitably, everybody will tell you yes. And then, and with varying degrees of change from that down the road, some people never bat an eye, and some people are interested in figuring out how we can change the cost of the Snickers bars in the airplane. So, it just was all spectrums there.
When people ask me, there's a lot of people that can write the check to buy the $5 million airplane. There's a lot less people that can write the $100,000 a month check to keep it going. And
very true.
Well, as my friend Dylan has often said, there's only one reason we all don't have one.
That's right.
Just one.
One thing holding this
very simple.
But except for the MU2. That's the loophole.
Well,
that's the magic loophole.
Even then, I'd still save a lot more money with a crack habit than this airplane situation I'm getting myself into.
Can I give you guys some advice?
Please.
On the MU2? And I think the last time we spoke, you'll remember that we were talking about airplane budgets and how I felt like being in the trade, being in the business of owning and managing airplanes, that I can outsmart what the books say that these airplanes cost to own. And 100% of the time, I've not been able to run these airplanes, trying to pinch my pennies and be as frugal yet smart about operating these airplanes. And I can't make it work the way that the books say they are. So good luck and Godspeed on your MU2 purchase.
Yeah, we'll let you know how it turns out.
Yeah. You might have a listing for you here soon. I don't know. It's like they say in like the stock trading market, like the market can remain irrational longer than you can remain solvent. Kind of a thing. It's kind of the same thing, right? You're not going to beat the market.
Yeah, brilliant statement.
Okay, Brooks, I have one last burning question for you before we get you out of here.
Okay,
what do you do when you go show an airplane to a buyer and the interior or the paint job is terrible, but they love it?
So interestingly enough, that happens more often than I'd like. And you have to know a background about me, and that I have a very exacting taste, in that I think it's a shame to buy an airplane and own it and operate it and not have a perfect interior and a perfect paint and make it exactly how you would want to own it. Half of the reason you own an airplane is for the logical and pragmatic reasons to own it, and the other half is the emotional reason. And frankly, it angers me when somebody is willing to spend $10 million on an airplane and then not care about what the paint and interior look like. So it's an internal struggle I have. So I lead into this conversation about, look, if it's an airplane I'm going to be involved in, I'm leading the conversation by saying, look, we're going to buy this airplane at $1 million under what these other comparable airplanes are. But I need you to put that much money into a refurbishment budget. My experience in watching airplane owners is that you could draw a lot of analogies. If you are the sort of family that always keeps your house clean, there's a different level of pride in it. You're more comfortable having guests come over on a whim, that sort of thing. But if you have to all of a sudden have a whole house cleaning day because you've got a birthday party around the corner and you're having guests over, same kind of analogy. And when you start with a fresh, nearly new cosmetics, it's easier to maintain. It's easier to have pride and joy in the airplane. And frankly, if you get in a pinch, it's easier to move the airplanes when they're in a good fit and finish. So I personally love buying airplanes that need cosmetic work. We like to be involved in, airplanes with good pedigrees, OEM maintained, service center maintained airplanes backed by a company that didn't care about paint and interior. Well, shame on them. They're going to sell it for a lot less money than an airplane that has brand new paint and interior and cabinets. Cabinets are a big thing for me too, but which it creates a brand new, fresh palette. So I guess I'm kind of talking out of both sides of my mouth. I like to buy airplanes that need paint and interior. It's a fun, creative project. I think it creates an emotional bond between an airplane owner or their spouse and the airplane, and that now you get on the airplane and somebody compliments you on, oh my gosh, I love the color of the seats. Yeah, well, I picked that out, or Karen picked that out, that sort of thing. There's something magical about that. And I like for people to have an emotional connection with their airplanes. It's more fun to be involved with an airplane owner if they actually care about their machine. If it's just a transportation tool, vehicles for me, I don't care about cars. It's just transportation. I don't care what color it is. I don't care about features and that sort of thing. So I can't be moved or enticed to buy something different based on being a better fit for me. It sure is fun to have people really tied to their airplanes. Do you guys see that from your experience in flying for owners in airplanes?
I have seen the entire spectrum, just like you mentioned.
Yeah.
But I will tell you that like you who enjoy working with people who do that. I enjoy flying for people that are particular and they say, yeah, I picked this paint job out. This is my interior and I want it to look great all the time. And there is something, it translates, I think, even over to the crew a little bit. We're like, this airplane is going to be spick and span. This is part of the deal. And so it translates. And I've also been on those airplanes where you can tell they don't care. It's a vibe. That's all I
yeah, put it this way. I've never worked with somebody that had a lot of pride in their airplane that also gave me a lot of pushback on the maintenance costs.
Well said.
Yeah. That's my main concern usually as a pilot.
Yeah, that's a good point.
An airplane manager is right.
I couldn't agree more.
All right, Brooks. Well, we appreciate you coming on the show. We also want to bring to attention everybody Vaerus's ambassador program. You'll find a link to that in the show notes. It's an awesome program if you or somebody you know is looking for a purchase or sale of an airplane.
You could get trained to go fly a DC-3 with oil, apparently, right? Is oil included in the program, Brooks? Do you have to bring your own?
We furnish the oil. It's not good for the longevity of the engines to provide flying time without oil. So, yes.
Okay. Learn more about that revolutionary program in the show notes and make all your friends jealous. The DC-3 type rating. Pretty awesome.
You guys need to come up and fly that airplane, by the way.
No, listen, Brooks, I've already flown it, so it kind of,
he's already,
Dylan unfortunately has not had the privilege or the honor, but
one of these days we'll fly our MU-2 to Topeka.
We'll let you fly it. We'll see.
Yeah. Then we'll do a little time trade. We'll do what do they call it? An interchange, right?
Yeah, perfect.
That'll be great. Interchange. We'll just save a bunch of money. We're going to beat the market. We're going to outsmart.
Yeah,
we got it all planned.
Sauce.
What could go wrong?
That's it for our friend Brooks over at Vaerus Jet Sales. Gotta love Brooks's wealth of knowledge, and I love how he tracks the statistics and the numbers in the business aviation game.
He's meticulous, just like he is with his aircraft interiors, paints, the whole thing.
Well, special thanks to Brooks. And also don't forget, if you are interested in working with Brooks through their ambassador program, you can find all the information in the show notes. We will provide a link to the Vaerus Jet Sales ambassador program. Thanks, Brooks.
Yes. I can't wait for one of our listeners to go fly that DC-3. It'd be so cool. It's almost as cool as flying a Baron or controlling almost the airplane. Okay, more advice needs to be doled out, Max. Are you ready to mentor the next generation?
Give it my best shot.
Okay, this opportunity to issue some flight advice is brought to you by Harvey Watt. If you visit harveywatt.com, you can learn all about the offerings Harvey Watt has for professional pilots out there, namely loss of medical insurance. That's right, that little white piece of paper that's difficult to fold that you got to carry around. You can lose it. And if you do, you won't be able to make any money. And that's a problem, especially if people are depending on you to put rice in their bowl, so to speak. You can insure against that. Visit Harvey Watt. Check out their loss of medical insurance, among many of the other products that they have for professional pilots. All right, let's jump right into the flight advice, Max.
Dylan and Max, I really enjoy your podcast and appreciate what you guys are doing for all of us. My current issue is that I am suffering from some major FOMO.
Oh.
I have the aviation credentials to fly for major, but I have a great job as a law enforcement officer pilot with a stable career and a pension. My current position includes a lot of management obligations in addition to my flying. It has also become very stressful, and I am away from home way more than I want to be. Also, I'm basically maxed out as far as compensation is concerned, and I am starting to resent the fact that as I continue to do more for my organization, I do not receive that any additional pay. In addition, I am current military reserve pilot. I live in an area with an airport within 90 miles, which is a domicile for multiple major airlines. I am vested as an employee and can leave at any time while still receiving a small pension, but nothing until I'm much older. If I stay another 9 years or so, I will be able to pull a respectable pension immediately, but I will miss the opportunity to improve my quality of life and possibly my income as a commercial pilot. I understand this is a first world problem, and I realize that I am in a very fortunate position. As a side note, my dad is retired from a legacy airline, and he is so utterly against the idea, he won't even talk to me about the topic. Wow. He saw and experienced some of the worst years of the aviation industry, so I understand where his reservations are coming from. Also, Max, I am envious of your Murphy Moose. I have a Cessna 170 and really enjoy GA flying and the freedom in the air which it provides. Take care, Anonymous.
A lot less cylinders in the a Cessna 170.
Yes, less than half. So I think that this comes down to two things. Let's start with the easy one, the money. You have a pension, which is also referred to as defined benefit plan, right? The key word in that is defined. Like you should be able to reasonably predict what your pension will be, right? Just like if you work at the airlines and you can reasonably predict what your earnings will be, and in turn, you can predict what your 401k will be, and yada, yada, yada. So I feel like you can spreadsheet out the monetary difference and see how much that is. That's the one thing. You have to quantify it, right? You can't just say, oh, I'm going to be missing out on all this money. Like, I think you have to quantify that, right?
Yes.
That's step one. And then it sounds like he really enjoys parts of his job and not other parts of it, right?
Yeah, he's got management obligations.
That's right. And I think a lot of people I've flown with that have never had to manage anything, whether that's, a flight department with a bunch of pilots or a restaurant or whatever. Because the thing is, a lot of military pilots, that were in for a while had to fly desk at some point and have management responsibilities. And essentially that's like a real job with responsibilities and going to an office and stress that goes along with that and everything. I think it's hard to fully appreciate being an airline pilot if you've never had to deal with that stuff. If you just went to college and got your ratings and were a flight instructor, and then you went to the regional and now you went to the airlines, like you never had to experience that. And so one of my favorite parts of the airline gig is the lack of stress and ongoing responsibility. After you're done, you set the brake, you leave, and you're good. There's very little stress involved. So obviously this gentleman has experienced that, and I think would really find the value in the lack of ongoing responsibility and stress that there is once you leave the job. He's within driving range of an airport with multiple airline domicile. That's a huge plus, right? But like we say with a lot of corporate aviators that are having the FOMO and stuck, it's like, give it a shot. You can always go back. He can't go back because then he starts over.
Yep. I would like to know a little bit more about what type of law enforcement flying we're talking about. Like, are you flying a fairly decent sized jet where you could easily jump to corporate later on if you didn't like the airlines? That'd be one question, I guess. Or are you flying like a 210? Like, I would want to know that.
It's hard because that's a very stable gig, right?
Yeah.
And especially what it sounds like his dad lived through some of the times that are described in that book, Hard Landings, and some of the more tumultuous times in aviation, which obviously has scarred him. Because even with the news and what's going on and everything else, it's crazy because he retired from a legacy airline and he's like completely against it. He won't even talk to him about it. Like that's some deep-rooted angst.
Yeah. It could have been like a Northwest guy or somebody from like US Air. Or they just got
or they got their pension chopped. I mean,
that was the only thing I was going to say. He talks a lot about the pension. I don't know. Pensions make me nervous. I guess if it's from a federal or like a government agency, it's probably less.
Yeah.
The other thing, a defined benefit deal like you're talking about, they're going to give you like a payout every year, right?
Yeah.
Of a certain amount of money. What happens with the value of money over time? It goes down, right? Because we're experiencing at least 7% inflation a year.
I don't know that much about it, but there's probably some sort of adjustment and
maybe whatever that number is. Man, this is something you really have to if this pension thing is like got you on the fence, I think you really got to talk to Tim about this.
Yeah, which will also help you pencil out the earnings.
Yeah, which will help you pencil.
Earnings thing, which at least you know where you stand and what the difference is, and depending on how much that motivates you personally, then that's. But clearly, it's a consideration because he mentions it. And then the other thing I think is that maybe get some other perspective from some other people that had retired from the airlines, or at least had been there for a while. It's always good to get multiple opinions. Obviously, your dad didn't have the best experience, but you also have to consider the fact that he may be right. And you go to the airlines, you punch out of the law enforcement gig, and then the world turns on its head and you're out on the street. That is certainly a possibility. And your dad's sitting there saying, "I told you so, idiot." Worst case scenario, but that's a possibility in this business. Just ask your dad.
Yeah, exactly. Last thing, it's tough to know here too. He says if he stays another 9 years or so, I'll be able to pull a respectable pension immediately. So, I mean, I'm trying to infer with that how old this person potentially is.
It's probably after being in, is it 20 years? Kind of like the military is and stuff. But
I'm just trying to figure out like how much time they would have at the airline too. That would be the other real question. Do you have 9 years until you're 65?
But the other thing too is that, like, from what he says, there's obviously frustration there, and it doesn't sound like much is going to change.
Yeah, exactly.
And so if that's not something you're willing to deal with, then those things that you're saying, you will experience a lot of relief from that at the airlines. But
I would say there's a lot of cool different things in aviation. My gut says go try something else and give it a shot.
There you go.
Life is short.
Straight from the gut of Dylan Miller.
And if it's the airlines, great, try that. Maybe it's not the airlines. Maybe you have some like rotor wing time too, and there could be some other careers too. I don't know. But there's just so much cool stuff out there in aviation. It would be a bummer to be stuck in a job where you're like, well, I have this pension and I got to, stick it out and this is the right thing. And it's like, there's so many cool flying opportunities out there. Just hate for you to miss that.
And I will throw out the fact that we did talk to a pilot who went to an airline and is still able to maintain his presence in law enforcement flying.
Yeah.
So anything is possible.
That's right. Best of both worlds. Take it from the man who has figured it all out.
More advice.
He literally flew a Baron today.
Literally. I had to go over control, power, drag, identify, verify, feather.
Yeah.
All the things.
That's right.
It's amazing. You still remember all that stuff yesterday.
I know. Go Eagles. It's the power of Embry Brittle. All right. Well, that is it for flight advice. I don't know. Did we help this young man? I hope so.
It does.
Let us know. Do a follow-up. Tim Pope, James O'Neill. I'd probably go chat with those folks. We know that they can probably help you. That's it. If you want to be featured on flight advice, shoot us an email, info@215podcast.com, or fill out the anonymous form on the website. We'll be happy to take a look at your situation and provide you with free, valueless advice. Anything else, Max?
That's all the advice without value I have today.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, that is going to do it for episode 107. Your source for Beechcraft Baron and Model RC NOTAMs.
It's just
tune in again in a couple of weeks whenever we find the time here after Max tours his next aircraft completion center. And
it's the passion for aviation. It's just undying over here.
Exactly. And I'll report in on all of the hand-flown approaches that I'll be conducting around the country thanks to our friends at Bombardier and Verizon. Tim Pope, thanks for sponsoring the show. Harvey Watt, Advanced Aircrew Academy, Vaerus Jet Sales, and the Air Comp Calculator course. Until next time, folks, just remember,
flexibility is the key to air power. Adios.
See you guys.